Hi guys, it's Victor here again. So today we're going to be discussing HTML and CSS. HTML is a language used to structure content on the web. So HTML is the bedrock of everything that exists on the web. So today we're going to be exploring it to understand what it's used for and how best we can use HTML in this modern day programming. So HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. What does this mean? Hypertext means that HTML is used to organize content. So it's not just about formatting a text on the web. HTML helps you to do that, but it goes even beyond just structuring a text only to even embedding multimedias like images and videos on the web. That is why it is beyond your normal word processor. It's beyond Markdown, in as much as you can do that on Markdown, because Markdown also is also a markup language. Do you understand? But each have their individual purposes, though HTML is way more powerful than Markdown. But let's leave Markdown aside. We're actually discussing HTML today. So HTML is hypertext, means that it has the ability to gives more power to a text. Let's just assume it to be that way because it gives more structure and base to a text existing on the web. The web can actually display a text on its own. If I open my browser and I decide to create a new document and then a HTML document, so to say, so long as it's an HTML document, my browser will display it without me entering any tag at all. You understand? So the fact that that file is a HTML document, the browser can understand it and then read any content there. But those components like those symbols that we use as tags to style or to structure a text that is existing on this HTML file, those are the things that gives the hyperness, that gives the hyper ability to a text. So I'll soon show us what I mean by all these things I'm explaining. Let me go to my code editor and then I'll show us something. Let me create a new file here called test.html and it is empty. I can type in anything here. I believe you can see my screen. I can type in anything I want here and I'll save. For the fact that this is a text, and for the fact that this is a file called test.html, the browser will render it because it is existing inside a file. So this for now, in this HTML document, this is just a text. If we open this, let me open this with live server. Open with live server. If I open this with live server, as you can see on my browser, our gibberish that we typed is showing on the browser. So these are just text. So HTML helps the browser to output tests. The browser is what we use to access the web. So HTML is the language, the browser is the engine that interprets the language. So HTML is a language, a computer language that helps the browser to understand text. You cannot just, there's no way you can send text to the browser without the HTML document. So the HTML document helps you to shoot this text to the browser. But it's not just about text. That's the one beautiful thing about HTML. That hence the hypertext that is in the definition. The hypertext is when we now add some structure to this text. We now try to style this text to fit a certain way. We also go beyond putting text in the browser to having some characters or tags, elements that helps us to embed images like other type of files within the HTML document. Now let me show us what I mean. So this gibberish we type here, we can decide to give it a context. We can decide to bold it or make it even a bigger text using the heading tag. We'll still get to all this, but I'm just giving us example. Using the heading tag, if you go here, we've given a structure to this text with officially before it was text, now it's now hypertext. Why? Because the HTML tags have been embedded to it and giving it a structure. So that's basically what HTML does. If we go back, you see the text is now bigger than what it ought to be before. Because I'm zooming, you might not quite know the difference, but let me just put the normal text and the one we have before. So let's see the difference. Are you seeing now what we have? This is the big one, and this is the small one. So HTML provides a structure to our web. Now, this is a normal, the second one is a normal text, while the first one is a structured text using some HTML tags to give you structure. That is the essence or the definition, just helping you to understand the hypertext that is in the definition of HTML. So that's it. Let's get back to our slide. So, like I said, it's a language. The browser is the engine that helps us to connect to the web. So we use the HTML as a document type to format or put our document on the web. And the browser picks this HTML file, interprets it, and render whatever it is that is on the HTML file. Now, let's talk about HTML semantics. HTML semantics refers to the tags that provide meaning to HTML page rather than just representing it. It makes HTML more comprehensible by better defining different sections and layouts of the web. The core characteristics of a semantic element is that it clearly communicates, it is like, my bad, sorry. The core characteristic of a semantic element is that it clearly communicated its meaning to both the developer and the browser. This element clearly defines its content. Now let me explain what this means. The HTML semantics provides a means where different characters which we use to structure some text on the web were previously defined without meaning. They are just built just to do some kind things, but they were not specifically like they were not targeting a purpose as to okay, this tag is used to structure this type of text, or this is used to structure this type of text. Outside the image tag, we all know. But then later on in HTML5, there is this arrangement that helps the browser to even interpret HTML code more better, just the same way the programmer understands it as well. Now, in the recent time, we can now have a tag called main, which holds the main content of a web page. We can have a tag called nav, just as you can see on the image on the right side of the screen. We can have a tag called nav, which helps us to wrap the navigation part of our website. We also have the header that helps us to hold the header part of our website. We also have different tags that was created to give meaning. So what this does is that whenever the browser sees these tags, it actually knows what these tags are supposed to hold, and by it just understand that this is a particular thing this tag is meant for. And it also helps search engines to be able to identify your website and its content easily than when it was just mainly divs that was used to put out content on the website. So the semantics is just the new HTML tags that gives meaning to content. So it is always advised in in this recent time that whenever you are working with HTML documents, use the semantic tags where possible, as necessary as possible, because it is going to not just help the browser or search engine to be able to identify your website as fast and give it meaning. And just if you have a website that deals, let's say, on mental health, if your content is well organized using the semantic tags, it will be easier for the browser to interpret it, making it also easier for the search engine to locate those websites as fast as possible. Immediately someone keys in something relating to that in a search engine box. So it is advised you use search engine. But like as I was saying before, this apart from this search engine optimization, it also help people, disabled people who are screen readers. they don't see. Blind people, they use voice. There's what we call screen reader. The voice automation in the phone or whichever device they are using tends to read the content of this website to the user. So when you use semantic tags or elements to build your website, it gives more context to the website, and the browser can be able to read out this content according to the context of what the website is for to the disabled person, and he will fully understand what your website is really talking about. I believe that made sense. Now, the basic important elements in HTML. We have the doc type, we have the HTML, we have the head, we have the title tag, we have the body tag, we have the H1, the P1. These are the when there's nothing you ever going to build so long as HTML is concerned that you don't need these tags. We'll see it in action in a few minutes from now. The doc type declare the doc type declaration defines that this document is an HTML5 document. It gives clarity to the browser as how to interpret the HTML document. You understand? If you use a doc type, it easily identifies your semantic tags because semantic tags are usually associated with HTML5. Now, we have the HTML tag. The HTML tag is actually the tag that holds the entire HTML document. After the doc type, the next in hierarchy is HTML. It wraps the entire HTML content, and that's the best way. These are you organize the HTML documents in order how they are supposed to be structured to get the better website website structure. Sorry. So we have the title element. We'll see how this is what the title element specifies a title for the HTML page, which is shown in the browser's title bar. Then we have the body element. This defines the document's body, and it's a container for all the visible content such as the heading, paragraph, image, hyperlinks, tables, etc. So everything you see on a website, apart from the title bar, are all embedded in the body under the body tag. They're all nested under the body tag. So the body tag is very powerful. Without it, nothing will be rendered. Anything that is not within the body tag, you can see it. All right. So the H1, the P tag, they're all used to format the text in the HTML document at different levels. What is HTML element? You've been hearing me say element, all that. What is an HTML element? An HTML element is defined by a start tag, a content, and an end tag. A start tag is usually like this, just like what we have in this image, tag name, and then the tag name. That's a closing tag. A closing tag is denoted by the forward slash before the tag name. Then HTML element is everything from the start to the end tag. Now we also have self-closing tags. Self-closing tags like image tag, the HR tag for you know it's not underlined so to say, but it kind of creates a partitioning between two sections of the website. And then we have there are quite a lot of tags that are self-closing tags. All right. So as we go along, you'll see them and we'll get to use them so you understand how they work. So at the end of this class, we're going to build this website. So it's called the motherfucking website. It's a HTML only website. So in order to solidify your knowledge in HTML, all you've learned, we're going to be replicating this website in a different context so that we can be able to solidify our knowledge in HTML. All right, so let's get started. Let's get straight to coding. Now, I've actually prepared some documents here. I've actually prepared some base code that we will use for this program. Now, let me remove what I had here before. Let's do, no, this is not it. Now, this is the structure of a HTML document. This is the structure of a HTML document. This is the doc type element we're talking about. This is the HTML element we're talking about. And we have the head, we have the body. This is the basic structure. We're going to be talking about whatever we're going to be designing here is going to follow the semantic structure. You understand? So, but first of all, there are some things we might have seen here that need to be explained. For example, the meta tag, the head tag, and then this HTML that is inside this doc type, the lang that is inside this HTML tag. These are called attributes. Any um most times these are like name tags, special names that gives context or uses to express more meaning to a tag, HTML tag. You understand? It uses, for example, this meta tag will have the name attribute. They are called attributes. All this in this light blue color, they are all called attribute. They provide more context to HTML documents, and it also helps the browser to even understand what you are trying to do or what you want this tag to do. Right. So let's start from um, this HTML lang. The lang helps to okay HTML even have a way of explaining what this does for us. So it helps to define. VS Code it has a plugin that connects to the MDN documentation that helps us to even understand what this means. So it helps to define the language of an element. That is what this lang was initially put in this HTML tag. You understand? If this HTML was to be to render its contents in a different language, let's say Spanish, we'll change this en to another thing, and we all have different keys that we use to represent different languages. So you can Google about that so you understand better. Now, the meta tag gives context again. These things are what helps the browser and search engines to operate. These are what helps your sites when they finally land on the World Wide Web to be easily identified based on what they do, to be easily categorized. The meta tag kind to define how the browser will, and this chassis how attribute declares the page character encoding. It determines how the characters that are seen on this page will be encoded, how it will be interpreted. Sometimes most of the characters that are not English language, the browser finds it difficult to interpret it. But when you put, there are different keywords for this chassis. Now, what we are using is the UTF-8, which is the standard character set for the web, which is mostly interpreted in English, but we have other um, character sets that are used for other languages because there are some languages that have extra characters that are not in the English language. So in order for the browser to understand this character, it needs to be told that this is not the normal English character set. So use this format in interpreting it. That way, your content will not get lost in the internet and nobody will see it, right? So that's that. And then we have the content, the meta tag that has the name viewport and the content. This name viewport kind of is almost like a general thing. You can actually put a name tag on any element at all, but we'll get to that anyways. So this attribute defines, we have the name tag. This attribute defines the name of a piece of document level metadata. It should not be set if one of the attributes or chassis is also set. Now, what this means is that, sorry, okay, sorry about that. So what this means is that it gives more like, okay, let me read what is here. The metadata is associated with the value contained by the content attribute. The possible value of the name attributes are application name, which defines the name of the application running in the web page. Now, let's leave this big grammar and let me just explain. This name viewport now is just trying to tell the browser there are different um, viewports that the browser can render a document on. So this meta keyword is used to tell the browser how these documents are going to be rendered. What Giving the name viewport, what is just trying to tell the browser is when you are rendering this document, please remember the viewport. Now we now went further to even give the viewport the content. This content is to provide more context to what we want this tag to do and how we want the browser to interpret this tag. And now the viewport now is telling it how do you interpret this viewport. Consider the width of the device, the initial scale of the device when you are looking at the device viewport on the browser. So it's just these are attributes. Remember what I said? Attributes. These are attributes. Attributes helps to provide context to a tag, to an HTML element, to help in order for the browser to better understand how to render that document. I believe that makes sense. Now, this title element is used to display the title of the website in the browser tab. Now, let me show you. If we go here and I decide to reload this page, let me clear out these tabs I have here so that we can have a better view. Okay. All right. We have What we have here is title of a website. You see the title of a website that we wrote on in our code. Whatever you type here, this describe the current page you are on. Describe what the page is all about. Just a short description. And that is what you get here whenever the browser open title of the website. I believe that makes sense. So now there are different HTML have different elements. We're not going to deal with all of them. Once we are done, I will leave you to research and then know more how to um, Google more and then build something so you'll be able to understand. Let's start with the basic semantic tags anyways. So let's start with the header tag. The header tag of the HTML helps you to, if you hover on this element now, it gives you from this MDN documentation, it just describes to you what this tag is used for. The header element represents the introductory content for its nearest accessors, sectioning content or sectioning root elements. A header typically contains a group of introductory or navigational aids when the nearest accessor sectioning content or sectioning root element is body element, then it applies to the whole page. Look at what this means. Mostly, you don't put header any other place unless there's a reason or you're writing some kind of application and you needed to use it somewhere else. But most times, the header element is used immediately after the body tag. It is used to wrap the header content of a web page. Do you understand? Most people used to have what we call header different and navigation different. But me, based on my coding style, I love to put my navigation inside my header. What this means is that whenever a search engine or the browser is trying to interpret my web page or website, it will know that everything inside here is what defines what my website is all about. And then from here, it can get the navigation links to different pages of my website. When I say navigation, it means being able to go navigate the website and go through different pages. So, like I said, the header always comes before the body. The body is not like it's not like it's a strict rule. You can put any element, any tag anywhere, so long as it's within the body element and so long as it's not these ones here. So once you put it within, under the body, it will render. So basically what I use my header for always is for to put the header of my content. If I have a banner, I might choose to put my banner here or might choose to put it under. But my header is what I use basically to wrap the navigational content of my website. So here We have the header, we have the nav. Nav is just a semantic element. It just tries to tell you that this is used to define navigation. Now it's not like if you put this here now, your website will automatically have a navigation. No. What this actually means is that what this actually means is that it's telling the HTML document, okay, we want to wrap our navigations here. So whenever the browser is trying to interpret it, whenever it sees nav, it will know, okay, here lives the navigation elements. So in defining the navigation elements, we have what we call lists, ordered lists. We have ordered and unordered lists. Ordered list gives you a list in numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, while unordered list gives you in bullet points. There are other attributes you can add to this tag that can give you different styling, like that the one you see in Microsoft when you have asterisk kind of bullet points or different designs of bullet points. But we're not going to deal with that now. So let's focus on the tags. So if I type this is the parent element of this. Whenever a list, this is called the list tag, it always comes with this or this. If you define the unordered list, if you define the unordered list with just like that without putting the list element inside, it won't display anything. And we are going to check this in the browser so you see home, home, about, about. And if we render this in the browser, you seeing it. First one rendered with the bullet point, the second one rendered with numbers. So that's the difference with this um, ordered list and unordered list. Remember, like I said, you see this one that we did not define the list inside, nothing was displayed in the browser. That is because the this element has always work with its child. It doesn't go anywhere without a child. So you must put the list element, the child element inside for you to have something to display. And even if we put this element, the child element, and we did not add anything, it will still not display anything other than the bullets, right? So we need to add content here for us to have something to display on the browser. I believe that is clear. Now, when we define this navigation, nothing was showing on the browser. So it's not like the navigation has something special it does. It does something special indeed though, but it is for the browser interpretation, not really for us. It's for the browser interpretation and also for the developer who is going to read your code tomorrow to understand what you built. That is why it is positioned that way so that reading of HTML code will be easier to understand. So let me return this back to what it was. And then we're also going to talk about please take note of all these elements I'm talking about. We're going to talk about remember all these elements I'm defining now. This is the opening tag and this is the closing tag here. Now I'm going to talk about something I didn't talk earlier before now. HTML comments. Whenever a comment is introduced in any programming language, it's usually used to give description to a piece of code written or sometimes to blur out a piece of code you don't want to be rendered or you don't want to run. You don't want the code to run or display. So that is what comments helps you. If you highlight a block of code and you comment it out, what it means is that the browser is only going to see that comment as a description, not a code to be rendered, and it will render that code that is commented out. Same goes to HTML. Once you write, there are tags, there are ways to put comments in HTML, just like there are ways to put comments in different programming language. Same goes to HTML. Now for HTML, we have this. This is used to put to give to comment to add commentary. This is used to add comments in HTML. And then now I'm going to instead of this I'm doing here, I'm going to put something like this here. So what happens is that whenever you put a comment for something, the browser is not going to display it. So we can say opening header tag, and then and now say let's do this under closing header tag. So if we render this in the browser, as you can see, it didn't nothing the comment you added didn't do anything. But what it helps us to do is whenever whoever comes to read this code will know okay the header tag starts here and ends here. Do you understand? Same goes to this. So when your code start becoming big, always don't forget to put comments so that you won't forget some kind things, and also help whoever is going to come to read your code to understand what you're trying to do. Okay, so now we are going to talk about other elements. Now we have the main. This main is also part of the semantic tag in HTML. Oh, okay. If you remember, I gave us a structure. I gave us a structure when I was sharing the slides. I'm going to go back to it and then I'll show you something. If you remember in the slide, I mentioned something here. Look at this. We have the non-semantic element and the semantic element. And if you look at the semantic element, you have the header first, you have the nav, we have the aside. Aside is when you want to put an element by the side. It's not like if you use this tag, it's going to push your element to the side. No, but you're just telling the browser this is an aside content. It's not really the main content, it's just a side content, right? So we have the main content here. The main is here, and then the main is divided into article. When you want to put a content that is just about an article, then we have section, we have footer. Do you excuse me? Do you understand? This is what this is all about. So we need to now we're talking about main. I just want you to whenever we are talking about HTML semantic, always have the structure of this picture in your mind. Okay. So let's go back to our code. Okay, so now we're in the main content. This main content is where we define our main content. Now I'm going to put, okay, my first website, okay, or my website name is Victor Annie. So here, we render this in the browser. Let me reduce my browser screen so that this will look realistic to some extent. Let's leave it at 150. I think 150 is good. Now, this is what we call the HTML element. They call the headings. The headings comprises of the H1, the H2, the H3, down to, in fact, let me put it in one line. You have the H1, H2, H3, H4, H5, H6. These are the 6 levels of headings. And as it is from the highest to the lowest, the H6 has the smallest display, followed by the H5 has also a smaller display, but its display is bigger than that of 6. So it's in descending order. You understand? So we start from the H1, which is the highest, go to the H2, second, so that goes on and on. So we can have this content display in 6 different ways. We have to have 3. So you get the gist. So this is how it display. We won't have to render all. So as you can see, as we are progressing, the sizes are reducing. So you should know when to use when. This is usually used to display bigger titles on your website. Let me do H4. So with this, we now have the paragraph text, paragraph tag. Paragraph helps us to put, it has, this is a paragraph. Paragraph has a smaller text font size, and then it is used to display a bunch of text. I can say, okay, let's remove everything here. And then I can say H3. This website talks about me. And then I'll now create a paragraph where I now give the description of what this website is all about. I can have H4, a description below, and then I'll put here, let me use dummy text, or I'm 100, let's display 100 text. And then if you see, let's do 100 is too much. Lorem 30. Mm, it's 50. Sorry, Lorem 15. This Lorem Ipsum's dummy text is dummy text generated with the help of VS Code. So you just type the Lorem 50, hit enter, and then it generates that for you. But in your assignment, please don't use dummy text, use actual tests. Thank you. Okay, so that's by the way. So you see, as you can see, it's now making sense. Our website is gradually making sense. My website name is Victor Ani. This website talks about my description below. Oh, my spelling of description is not right. Below. Oh, I don't know how to spell again. Okay, so this is basically it. And then there is another important semantic tag that we forgot to mention, section. Section is very nice. It helps to group your website section by section. You can even give each section a title or ID to know, okay, this section is for this section is for this. And please, whenever you're writing code, always remember to format your code. So what I mean format, align it. As you can see, I'm using my tab button to shift these things to be in alignment. The reason is because so that you can be able to identify your when your code grows bigger, all these things will be big. If you don't order them, you can't be able to trace issues when issues arise. So you can easily close three elements that are in block. You can just close them, and then it gives you more clarity when you are looking for something. So please always remember to format your code or indent your code as the case may be. So this is our section one. We now want to create section two of our website. So and give it a title using H1. Say section one, section two, sorry. And let's do H3 description. So this is basically it. And then there is this element I love using so much. When I want to differentiate sections, I use something like this HR. Now this brings me to a very beautiful thing. It's what we call self-closing tags. Now, as you can see, this gives us a very demarcation line between the section 1 and section 2, right? You can even add this after the header to give us a demarcation also after the header. So as you can see, this tag does not have an opening, or it only has an opening tag, it doesn't have a close. We don't have something like this HR. No, it doesn't work this way. It doesn't really work this. This is what we call a self-closing tags. I have quite a number of them. It's called self-closing tag. We have image tag is also self-closing. It doesn't have another one you use to close it like this. No, it's just on its own, right? And then you can Google and give me the list of tags that are self-closing, right? So that's basically it. And then there's a very important tags. I'm just using this guide to give us what semantics structure is and how to build your website in a semantic way. There's something we didn't do here and I want to implement it right here. And we're going to do that using, that will launch us into another thing I want to talk about, which is attributes. So if you look at this thing I added into this unordered list, for now we'll use this ordered list but not later so that our website will look more real. We'll use that maybe in our section 2. Let me just structuring so that it will have to make sense. So now you see our website is gradually having shapes small small. Here is the anchor tag. Anchor tag helps us to add links or link different web pages together, right? We can create a second page here and then call it um, anything, and then we'll use the anchor tag to link to that page. Sometimes it's not just about linking to different pages. We can also use anchor tag to link to a particular section of our website, right? Have you ever been to a website where, let me even show us, view a website where, let's go to Elabs Africa website. Go to Elabs Africa, you come to a place called About, and it's loading. Just let's give it some minutes. Let me try, because let's see which one will load faster. Okay. Please be done so that we can go to what we have. My network is quite slow. Alright, so let me check if this will. Alright, so this is exactly the feature I'm looking for. When I clicked on this about us, hold on. When I clicked on services, as you can see, it launched me down to the service section of this my web page. When I hit on, okay, training is not there. Let's see Elabs Africa, it's still loading. It's not loaded properly. So when you sometimes an anchor tag can help us to get to a certain section of our website. There are some websites you click, it just takes you directly to what these websites, maybe what their services, a section of their page at all. Sometimes it's not another page, but just a section. So these are what using anchor tag can help you to achieve. Now, going back to our code, we have going back to our code, we have anchor tags there. Then there's this new thing here called attributes. This attribute, like I told you before, attribute helps to give more context to an HTML element. When I say tag, tag means element, they are all the same thing, right? That's why I'm using them interchangeably, so please don't get confused. So the anchor tag or the anchor element is used to link for linking. Let's see what MDN doc says. It said if the a element has an href attribute, then it represents a hyperlink. A hypertext anchor. A means a hypertext anchor labeled by its content. So the href attribute is called href. Href attribute means a hyperlink. You're giving a hyperlink. Now let's see how they define this. How to say this href attribute contains a URL or a URL fragment that the hyperlink points to. A URL fragment is a name preceded by a hash, which specifies an internal target location. So let's leave this thing. It's just like that thing I explained before. If I put, if I want this to link to a different website, I can put www.google.com. You can use this to link us to external website www.fasticall.com. google.com. If I save this and come back to our website, if I click on this link now, it will take me to Google. Okay. The reason why it is not taking us is because I'm serving this application with a live server for auto reload, so it's not going to take me to the absolute URL. But let me say if I do HTTPS, this is google.com. Let's go back to our website and let's click on it. Okay, still didn't load as we were supposed to. Now it has loaded. So if I come here and let me remove this too also. Let me put this absolute URL. The reason why we're not able to locate it with www is because www is not an absolute path. We'll get to understand what I mean by absolute path. So it is more like when you use www, it means it's like a subdomain. It means like it means like the google.com lives within our code or our file, but it doesn't. So that's why it's not we don't do that. If to say we can do something like this, add the www back, it will still redirect us to google.com because we've added the absolute parts that point directly to the Google server. But don't worry about the big grammar, you will get to understand it. The more you go, the farther you go, the more you understand. So this will take us to a different page. Fasticore.com. I think I did not spell it correctly. It's Fasticore Technology, not Fasticore Technology.com. Let me go back, refresh this page, click on it again. See, took us to Fasticore. So, as much as we can do this, we can also use this to also target to a particular portion of our website. Now we have the href attribute. In HTML, we have a lot of attributes that we encounter or we can apply to different elements. But I'm going to introduce a new attribute here called the ID element and the class. This ID is going to play a lot of roles when we start learning CSS. And then now we've given this an ID called section 1. And if we come here, because it's an ID, we can put a hashtag and put section 1 here. What this will do is that once we click on this, it will take us to this section 1 of our web page. Let's go back and let's refresh. If we click on this, it should take us section 1. The reason why it's looking as if it's not taking us is there already, just that this website is not long. If we go beyond this screen view, let's say we have a scroll bar here. Well, let me show us so we can have a bigger understanding. Let me just double copy all this so that it will make our website look nice. And then let me remove all these IDs. Remember, IDs are not to exist twice. IDs are not to exist twice. If you give an ID to an element, let it be unique. IDs are meant to be unique. So IDs are meant to be unique. You don't give one ID to plenty elements. There is an attribute meant specifically for that, which is called class. Yeah, let me put this section to where we can locate it. When you're using the class attribute, I can give it a class. This class can be applied to all the sections here. but it is wrong to add class to all the add ID section to all the sections. I don't know if that makes sense. So for this one, an ID and class can exist together, just so you know. It's not because maybe I've given this an ID doesn't need class. No, it can exist together. But make sure there's no other element that has this ID code section. So if you must give an ID to this one, make sure you give it another name. Maybe section T, something, anything. So now let's go to our link. Remember we changed it to section 2. Let's go and refresh. Remember when I clicked on this link, it's added that URL fragment we talked about section 1 to the URL. So I'm going to remove it because if we don't, it will still take us there and it no longer exists. It does no longer exist. So let's refresh, which we've done. And if I click now, we have a scroll bar. As you can see, so our website is big now. We have a scroll bar, we have much content. If I now click on this, are you seeing something happen? It brought us to this section too. So these are the typical things you can do with anchor tags. So from this, I've been able to talk about what HTML attributes are. I've been able to also talk about what IDs and class are, and you will see them play out when we start doing a bit of CSS. So I think there's nothing else. We'll just finish up our HTML structure and then we'll move to the next one. So we'll have the section 1 here, and even have it's not a must it to be in capital letter, it can be in small letter. There's no pattern to it. Section 1, we have section 2. Let's just leave it this way so you can see the variation. But class you can have, and you can have multiple class. You can decide to section and also give it this. But whenever you are doing this, there's a reason when you see multiple classes existing on one element, most of the time it's used to target a division of styling. But let's leave that for now. We'll get to that later. Now we've talked about the main tag. We've talked about let's put our demarcation here. Then let's put our demarcation here as well using the HR tag. Now we've done quite a number of things. Then we're not doing aside because there's no aside here. But we can have a section. Remember there are levels to these things. A article should exist inside an is aside or a section. I can have an article tag here. And then say lorem 100. So this is an article. And then there's an attribute called we can use title. Say title gives description to this element. You can say article about Africa. If you do it now, you see we have title here. This is another attribute that plays a descriptive role when you are trying to um, stuffs like this. And then before this article, let's add an image tag and let's import an image. Let's see. I already created a folder called image and it has some data here. So some images. So let's put stigma. So you put the path to the image and make sure it is within your project folder, else the image will not show. Now there is this alternative. This alternative is in case the image is not showing, what should we display? So that if a screen reader, a blind person who is reading your screen who is on your website using a screen reader, when he gets the pass, maybe there's a network glitch or something and the image didn't load, the person can still know, okay, there's an image at this section I am on, but it's not showing. But what is this image talking about? This alternate or alt attribute helps to define what this image is all about. So this is an image showing a mental health stigma. right? So are you seeing it? It's displaying right now. Now this image has a small size by default. There's also image also comes with some attributes like width and height that helps you define it. Let's give this thing a width of 500 and a height of 200. This image, sorry. And if you go like that, see the image has grown bigger. So the image tag has other attribute that helps you to make the image look better, like this width and height, and then the alternate now. So now, assuming our image is not correct, we need the spelling. Now remember, the alternate text now displays. And now say this is an image showing a mental health stigma, right? So that's by the way. The last but not the least we're going to talk about is remember the aside too. If you want to use it, it's just to provide context to what you're doing, but I'm not using it here. The last thing I'm going to deal with is the footer. The footer provides a better ways to define, okay, have you gone to websites where you see something? Let me go here. See something like this, copy to 2023, all rights reserved. Or let's use Elabs Africa. If you go to Elabs Africa, this is their footer. This orange red color here is their footer. This is where you define some important company links, and then you define also the social media handle. See the copyright Elabs Africa 2023 in Nigeria. You understand? So even Elabs have that feature I told you. See, when you click on the about, it takes you to the about section, right? If you click on Teams, it also takes you there. So clients, it takes you to their client section. So all you just need to do is know how to format your HTML. So this is a footer. So what footer does is sometimes most times there's some people that will add what we call site maps to their websites. So site maps are usually on the footer. So when a and it helps search engine also, search engine bots like Google to locate or have an overview of the structure of your website. Let's say your website has multiple pages now and performs multiple activities. So with the sitemap, when a search engine bot sees that sitemap, automatically knows where to go and look for information on your site. So, and whenever search engine are looking for site structures, they always go to the footer. So that is why this footer is important to use when defining the ending part of your website. So we're going to use all right reserved. Then I have copy. We put copy here. This copy is what we call 2023. This copy is what we call HTML entities. Each HTML entities are different character sets that are used to define special character in HTML. This character set does not have a tag in HTML, right? So it is most of these HTML tag you are seeing are created from these character sets. So and if you Google it, if you Google HTML entities, you will see HTML entities. You will see a lot of them. There are quite a number of them. You see their rows, what they do, their numeric values, and then there are a lot of other values. You understand? So just so you know. So HTML are created from these entities. So, but it's not you cannot come and create tag for almost every single character in the alphabet. No. So this HTML entity helps you to add some small characters. Even we have space. We have the one for space. I forgot. NSP. I think I found it. This one is to give space. So these are character sets. They're called HTML entities. So this is what we use to add. So if we come to our website, if we go to our footer, you can see all right results. You see that C stuff is here now. And the extra space we added with the space character, space entity. But let's remove the space entity. We don't need it. If you see the space has reduced. So now we also have and then there's something else I need to mention. The p tag, this p element and the div. Then we have, I didn't mention the div. Okay, let's add one more section so we can touch the div as well. Here I'm going to be explaining something really important. And every single HTML character have what we call block elements, and we have what we call inline elements. Block elements are elements that takes up one line on their own. Example of a block element is this section. Why they are block element? Because there's what we call padding and margin in HTML. Padding is the spacing around an element, while margin is spacing outside an element. So let me go to our website that we are building so you understand. You see this section now. This space up here and space down here are margins. And these margins are created as a result of that this section now is a H1 element. This section we are seeing here is a H1 element, and H1 elements are block level elements. They take up one row. They take up one row. Let me show. Let's go to the browser too so you see something. This is how you access website codes. Now, if you look at this, there's an highlight here that says H1. And if you click on this H1 now, during this highlight, as you can see, it took up the entire line. The entire line, the H1 took up the entire line. That's because it's a block level element. And every block level element comes with its own margin and padding, thereby giving space to the top, bottom, the top, the left, right, and bottom of that element has an extra space that it comes with. So by default, even if you define that element and you do not put something inside, that space will still be occupied. Let me show us. Let's give us an example. Let me do um let me do div. Let's create a div. Div is also a block level element before our footer. Remember, this is before our footer. So let me close this up. If we go down, we have a div here before our footer. Like this one is hidden. Let me use H1. Okay, yes, H1 is there. Div also is a block level element, but for some reason it's not doing what I needed it to do, but let's leave that. So in the hierarchy of block level elements, H1 is bigger than this div, but div is more like an enclosure element more than H1. But that's, by the way, is how me I understand it. Is not standard. But in understanding it that way, it helps you to know how to structure an HTML page. Because if the way you structure an HTML page determine how easy it is for you to style it. Most of the times when you structure an HTML document wrongly, styling it becomes a problem. Styling has some rules it follows, and in following that rules, it's also determined by how you structure your HTML. So now, as you can see, there's a space given, even though I did not put anything inside this H1, but there's a space given, right? So this space is the space, one line space that this H1 has by virtue of being a block level element. Same goes with p tag. If I do it, you see the space will also be there by virtue of what being a block level element. Same goes with div too, but I know all these things will not appear here. So we need to understand these things because block level elements helps us to, you know, when you understand there is a block level element as an inline element, it helps you to structure your code and style it. Level elements has, you need to understand that take up a lot of space when they are defined. So when styling, you know how you work with the paddings and the margins. Now we have the inline element. Span is an inline element, meaning that I can have three span here and they will all be side by side. They don't take up one line space, they just be side by side. Say feet, gifts. So if we put this like this, as you can see, so this is, as you can see, they are side by side, feet and git are side by side. This reason is because they are inline elements. If I put this in, if I do this with p, let me change this pound to p now, you see what will happen. You see that this one will still, you see, the feet took up the entire line and then threw span behind the corner, right? So if you understand that, we also have I, which is used for text styling, display style in italic is also an inline element. Italic is also an inline element. If I display it like this, as you can see, all of them came together on one line. Fit gives italic because they are inline elements. But block level elements takes up one full line and other extra spaces. You get. So we have um, inline fits in one line as much as possible. Why block level elements takes up the entire line with extra space. So this is it. And then I don't want this P to be all by itself. I want to wrap it into a cloth. We have div here. Most times I don't allow my P tag to be lying around. If I have a group of P tag that is defining an article or something, I have to define them around something. Like this article now we have here. We can group this article in different formats. We can have it like, we can have a div. We can have a div talking about, we have H3 here. What is Africa? And then have a paragraph tag talking about that defines Africa, lorem 30. And then we'll have another div where is Africa. See the same thing. We have H3 again. Are all Africans black? No, all Africans are not black. No, all Africans are not black, but they have black blood running in their veins. That's funny. Anyways, don't mind me. All right. So, as you can see, we've grouped our article into divs and paragraphs, and it's all coming together. As you can see, what is Africa? Here now we have an image. Remember, we removed it, and then let's define a title for this. Let's say this is an article section of my website. So this is an article section of my website, as you can see. So we've grouped it so we can easily style. The essence of this grouping, so it can be arranged and ordered in such a way that we know what group this one belongs to what group, and we can even go ahead and give them tags by adding IDs and classes to them, right? So that is why it's good to arrange them in a proper order. Right. Like this italic and all these ones I have now, I can come and nest this, can nest this element inside paragraph tag. As you can see, everything is fine now. So I think this is where we'll call it up for HTML. See you guys later. Thank you.